Namaskar and welcome to this exciting episode of Sathology Debunking Mythology. You know, we all know that how faith-based colonialists distorted the history of the natives of every land where they went, and it's such a long time. Colonial imperialism has ended or colonialism has ended, but actually not so. If you look at South America, still their history is termed as mythology. Now, what impact does it have on South Americans? That till date, they do not have self confidence or they don't have the identity. They're all looking for identity. The Native Americans in South America or in North America, their identity is not European. European settlers came there, or rather conquered over there. But in other countries, such as India, also the same thing happened, but the Indian culture was so well documented, it was very difficult for them to change it. But what they did was distort it. And with that, I'll just open the forum. We have very amazing guest with us today, and he is going to tell us about one such story. And so let us hear him. Without delay, let us welcome Sri Rajesh Kumar Singh.
So,
Namaste, Rajesh.
namaste and welcome everybody. Uh,
Yeah, welcome. So, Rajesh ji, before we start, you have a slides you want to show us. Before we start off that, uh, can you tell us what impact has the distortion of ancient Indian history has on Indian psyche?
the very first thing which I have felt as an Indian, and that we are not even aware of our own culture. We would very happily go to Paris to see Mona Lisa, and everybody would know. But this temple, which I would talk to you about, nobody. I mean, very few people would know about it.
Mhm.
And I'm very much proud of many of aspects of Indian culture, and Dasavatar temple is one of them. And I feel that very few people know about it. Very few people even try to visit that place, which is located in central India. And if you see the divine art there, and so it's for everybody to see and appreciate. And as you told that if we don't know about ourselves, so we don't believe in ourselves. Everything is here. If we know ourselves, like our ancient culture, art, history, language, so people will use it as a cliche, like you will call it yoga, but yoga is something which adds up, something which links you with everything. So until unless you know these things, for us it shall be like knowing ourselves. So for our own discovery and for the larger benefit of the civilization, uh, we shall know about our ancient culture. And there are many things, as I will share, because they are not available in public domain, in a sense that they are not, the temples don't exist, people are not aware, they don't go to museums. But if you see, and the stories are told in a informative and interesting way, we will do a great service to ourselves and to the civilization in a large way.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's a great opening remarks that you have, and you also said that it is in our own interest that we try to learn our own history, and it is not somebody else is not going to tell us. Unfortunately, for Indian scriptures and Indian mythology, such as Ramayana, Mahabharata, more commentaries are written by Westerners than Indians, or rather, commentaries of Western origin authors is more popular than the Indian authors. And where Indian authors such as Narayana Acharya comes to my mind first thing from Bangalore, who did a wonderful work on Mahabharata. Such a remarkable writing. And Vyasdev is obviously from India, and there was such a remarkable composition. But people will quote William Shakespeare and somebody else rather than Vyasdev, Narad Muni, Arjun, Krishna. Why is that mindset coming from?
Even Kalidas. People will say Kalidas as a Shakespeare of India. I would just wonder, Kalidas has happened earlier. If you read Abhigyan Sakutla, why not Shakespeare is told as Kalidas of Europe?
Yes. So, you can share your slides anytime. We'll keep talking. So, so one of the
So what I will, what see, I'll just, I think slide is there. I'll just share it, and we can keep talking.
yes,
Uh, so this temple, I will talk about. Um, First of all, I'll make itself clear to everybody that I'm speaking here or interacting with to you in individual capacity, and which I am very happy and proud about. It has nothing to do as a government representative. Uh, Aim, I have told you to share certain knowledge which I have seen through my intensive traveling throughout the countryside. And this temple is located in central India in Bundelkhand. And I have been to this temple at least 3 times with my family also. And I'll share what is its significance and why we shall all know about it. Uh, we all have seen North Indian temples. They have huge spire. Curvilinear spire, whether it is in Khajuraho or even modern India, we see these temples. How did temple architecture and art form started in India? My talk will be about it. It will take you to a journey through few of the temples. And you can always interrupt me and ask questions whenever you feel like. So Dasavatar temple is first prototype of Sikhara temple. Prior to this, there was no Sikhar temple, a spire temple. A temple, they were not having any spire. So something which we associate with a temple in now a time, this was the first temple. I think very few people would know it, but this is one of the important reason why I put it a large significance to it. Secondly, we all know there has been art ages. So Gupta period, when Gupta dynasty ruled, that was the period when Kalidas was also there. I mean, art, literature, culture, architecture, sculptural art, painting, Ajanta, Ellora, everything flourished, and we know it as a classical age of Indian art. So the sculptural art, which is part of the divine temple here, reached its pinnacle there. And even afterwards, the kind of expression which we really feel, you talked about meditation. So you will see the sculptures actually meditating and telling us to have that kind of expression, joyful, blissful expression on our face. So this is a kind of 100-year journey. You see, I'll take you. So stage one was temples were carved out of rocks. Second was that sanctum was in the rock, and structural pillared mandapam, pillared hall was being made. And then we had full structural temple, which we construct through either bricks or through stones. And they started with a flat roof, then there was a double storied, and this temple with a spire. So this is in summary, this knowledge I will be sharing. Many of you would have heard about Udayagiri. Giri means hill, Uday means to rise. So this is a place in the Vidisha district in central India in Madhya Pradesh, where about 20 rock cut temples were carved out by the sheer perseverance and effort by our ancestors. And you see, there are two panels here. So on the left side, if you see, the boar, the Lord in the form of the boar, Bara Avtara, and this is the largest carved statue of Baraha. You see the posture; it assures the worshippers that I have the God has saved the goddess Lakshmi, Bhudevi, and I will just emphasize that by this time, 400 BC, though in art form we see our gods and goddesses were there, always there. As you say that we are trying to negate these things. Many people try to negate it, but this was always there from the Vedic time. And from this time, you can see the icons, the gods coming in the art form in full mature form here. Now this is Sayan Sai or Anand Sai Vishnu. This is a rock cut cave here. Then you have temple number 6. This is 2 rock cut temples. You see, there's a Pravesh Dwara on the left side. 2 divine guards are there. Then you see Mahishasur Mardini. We had just celebrated Navratri Durga Puja. You can see here in full ferocious form assuring the devotees. Lord Ganesha on the left side. So this was starting time period of the temple architecture. The devotees were trying to express themselves through this. Then we had here a sanctum in the rock and the mandapam coming in front of it. It's a structural art. So this was second stage. Then in the same case, you have temple number 19, cave number 19, where you can see that on this rocks here on the left side, the sanctum is there. The mandapam has, of course, got destroyed. There are certain things.
Are these temples protected by Archaeological Society of India, or they're open?
Yeah, now they are protected by Archaeological Survey of India.
So open,
centrally protected.
Open worship is allowed in those temples of public or no?
Open worship is not allowed because as per their rules, because Britishers would have found this rule that in monuments worship is not allowed, but there is no restriction. I mean, if you go and offer your prayers, so there is no restriction.
But there are no pujaris over there. No pujaris.
No, pujaris are not there. These are in centrally protected monuments. Generally, I'll not say, but generally you will find that pujaris are not there. Now, art form has started taking form here. What is important is Amrit Manthana, you see, turning of ocean. These things we don't know that they have been represented. I showed you Baraha, I showed you Mahishasur Mardini, and you can't see it very well because of the weather condition, it has weathered down. But temple form is starting taking place. And I read your article on Lakshmi. We just worship Lakshmi here on the eve of Diwali and we are worshipping it. Lakshmi is prominently shown here. You cannot see here in the central lintel here, but I'll show this goddess has been depicted since very beginning of the art and it provides a continuity. And Ganga and Yamuna, 2 rivers. We, our country, we believe in nature. We pray all the aspects of nature and we believe in not only Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, that everybody's world is to be shared by, even natural resources we pray. So Ganga and Yamuna has been, when you enter into the temple, the sanctum, you pray to these goddesses, and these are the continuous things which you will see. This is the Sanctum Sanctorum. So I showed you the avatar of Vishnu there, Varaha Avatara, and here you can see Lord Shiva. And on the right bottom panel, the Shiva family is there. So even from Indian concept of view, you see Shiva is a household person, Shiva, and they have family also. So it really assures you that for a happy civilization, you shall have a happy family. So that depiction is here. Now, the third stage is there. Sanchi is another place in Vidisha where full structural temple has started, you see. They are flat roofed, they are simple sanctum with 4-pillared mandapam, and evolution of the temple architecture has started taking place. Similarly, there is another temple of the same period, Yuva Kankali, that is also in Madhya Pradesh. There also you can see that there is a sanctum and it is supported in front for devotees to be there with 4-pillared mandapam. What you notice here, the pillars have started taking some decorative form. But on the side, this is, we call it Pravesh Dwar. In Sanskrit or in Hindi, we call it Pravesh Dwar, but it is a door jamb when you enter it. So not much decoration is there here. There's another temple in Rajasthan state, you can see that almost the temples which I will be showing are in ruined condition. That is very very pathetic. But I have also photographed and shown the pictures from the museums there. You can see this is half moon stone at the top edge, and you see the kind of celebration of life is there. And these pieces are seen in a very small museum in Kota city Kota in Rajasthan, and it's see the art blossoming now. Another temple is Shiva temple in Bhumra, again in Madhya Pradesh. It is again in ruined condition, but I will a small story here. There was a gentleman known as Bras Nivas Vyas from Allahabad. He was a government servant. He was a member of municipal corporation, but he was very passionate about art and architecture. So what he will do on Saturdays, Sundays, he will not devote his time in pleasure hunting, but he will go for real hunting of the architectural fragments. So the temple which I have shown you earlier, you see that is in ruined condition. 1930s, he will just travel to nearby areas, to Kausambi, to Allahabad, to Khajuraho, to Bharhut, and he will collect those places even not knowing the full importance, but he will preserve them, knowing fully well that they would be worth telling a lot of stories. And these pieces, when I have been to Allahabad Museum, these are from Allahabad Museum or Prayagraj Museum, you can see. So there also you can see that the moon, half moon decorative pieces here. Kartikeya is there, son, the elder son of the Lord Shiva, Mahishasur Mardini. Here Dwarpal is there, sun god is there. And what I want to emphasize here is that many of the pieces we have lost. These are a few pieces which have been recovered, but many, many more pieces, many more fragments we have lost. So we don't have the full richness of our heritage, and even what we have, even fragment of that we don't know, fraction of that we don't know. And these are there in the museums, but they perhaps the stories have not been told in the way they shall be told. We are not enthusiastic about it. We don't go to these places. When I was in Allahabad doing my engineering and teaching, I never went there because we would always be. We were never told. I mean, we have not taught that you can go and appreciate your art and culture. It was slowly when I had to write for civil services. So I took my own subject as Sanskrit literature because of my own interest, because now I can do something on my own. So I started going to these museums, and I just wondered that there is a lot to know about ourselves. The stories, as you told, we have been hearing from childhood about Mahabharata, Ramayana, the Shiva, and they have been represented in art form. The only art form which we know in our country is divine. You see, it has come from the divine root only, and everything has a place. And that's what the beauty is, that there's nothing in the world which has not found represented on the Indian temples.
One of the things when I went to a tour of Purana Killa by some very prominent archaeologists in India, and in the middle of Purana Killa is a Kunti Devi Mandir.
Yeah, it's there.
And that temple is there since the time of Pandava. This is a legend. And I verified it from Mahabharata itself, that there was a place in Indraprasth which Yudhishthir had made for Kunti. And he also had made a pokhar. That pokhar is still there. And around that fort, Sher Shah Suri destroyed that fort. And he committed suicide in 3 years. And then Himuchand controlled that fort. So that place had so many murti of ancient times, Mahabharata era. Now all those are kept in a museum within the same fort. Can you imagine that? The deities which should be worshipped by people are in the museum over there. And that exactly happened in South America also. The faith-based colonialists put the ancient native culture in a museum. And when I see these pictures you're showing, I'm very grateful to you for showing this. And the same thing comes, that so much culture, every district of India has so much history that people can appreciate, collect, and preserve, and bring back to the original glory of being worshipped. These things have to be worshipped or respected in a big way. Please go ahead.
I fully appreciate. I will just before I continue, I'll put two of my observations. First is that when Delhi was being transferred as capital of the British India from in 1911 from Kolkata, so this Purana Killa, old fort, still had Indrapat village. Indraprastha, so Indrapat village was there. So Bagpat, Sonipat, and there are 5 villages, which the story goes that the 5 villages were devoted to Pandava. And there is a Bhairav temple also still there, adjoining to the fort. Secondly, what you said, and I also said, any district, any place you go in India, any place. And when I was some 15 years back, I went to a place, Sambhar in Rajasthan. So I went for some work, but my family was there. Then I asked the people, is there anything to see? Because that's my habit about Indian culture. So they told me that the story of Mahabharata started from here. I wondered, oh my God, I don't even know. I have been reading so much, but I didn't know that. Then I came to know that Devyani, Yayati, and Sarmishta, the two initial characters. So Yayati has rescued Devyani from a well at that place, and that's how Mahabharata starts. And I didn't know about that. So
Which place
what you
was that?
said
Can
is
you
very
repeat that? In Rajasthan, which place was that?
in Sambhar. I had gone. The Sambhar is a place. Sambhar Lake is there where Prithviraj Chauhan, the initial capital, was there. So I had there is a salt factory there. Because the lake is so large that salt water will collect and they will collect salt water. So I inquired that what is the important cultural aspect here. So they told me that, Yayati was a Kshatriya king.
Correct.
And Devyani was the daughter of the Sukracharya, the gurus of the Daitya. So she had somehow fallen in a well there. And Yayati was passing by that. So she was, of course, crying for help. Save me, save me. So Yayati offered his hand. It was a shallow but large enough well. So he pulled her out. So when she came out, she said, no, now you have to marry me because you have supported my hand. तुमने मेरा हाथ पकड़ लिया है. So he said, no, you are a Guru Putri. So how can I marry? But so that's how the story starts. So that's the place where Mahabharata is said to be. This story is believed to be started. And there is temple also. They were calling it Devdani Mandir, Devdani temple. From Devyani, it has become Devdani. And there was a big pond and kund supported by temples. So there are so many stories like this which we don't know. So this is about Bhumra. And these pieces were collected by Mr. Braj Nivas Vyas. Okay. Now, these are some other panels which have fallen from a broken temple or whatever region would have been there. So these pieces are now proud collection of Allahabad Museum, and you see art is taking form. Now what now I am saying you'll appreciate very much is that, see, in the Bhumra temple, this is the Ek Mukh Ling Shiva. Shiva has been manifested in many forms in India. Linga, a formless thing, it represents. But we want to pray. So one face, Ekmukhi Linga, 4 faces, Chaturmukhi Linga, Sahasramukhi Linga, etc. These are some of the pieces which you see only in museums. Good that at least we see in museum. Again, Mr. Braj Nivas Vyas, he was going through some jungle area. He collected this piece, which you can see from the center and the right side. I have taken 2 views and I have worked on it. They are from Kho. It's a very small place, Kho, in Satna district, near Bhumra itself. Now you see the kind of expression is there on the guard, half meditating, self-assuring, assuring yourself also. This is the posture of the meditation. And this blissful feeling we had achieved at that time. but hardly I don't know many of us would have seen it or know that this is there in the Allahabad, and the left one is in National Museum. Okay. This piece which I am showing in the National Museum has been recovered from an Indian temple, which is now part of Gupta period temple, which is part of a tomb, Sultan Gadi tomb. When you go to Mehrauli, to Delhi, to airport, these pieces are kept. So you see, these are some things which we have somehow we have recovered. Most of the pieces have been destroyed of the temple part. Different kind of creatures have been shown. So if you see, at least some manifestation is there. Then we come to another temple, which is again in MP. Why they have survived? Maybe they were far from Delhi, Sultanate area maybe, and the temples couldn't be destroyed fully. So, and even then, some part is there. So they, you see, still the temples were built flat roof. There is a double story here. Now this is Parvati table. You see, the temples have been there for goddess also, for Shiva also, for the Vishnu also. So as you say that nobody can deny these things have been in existence for long, and they were there in scriptures, they were there in belief, but they have not only been there, they have been manifested in art form also. And you see here, I will talk about these in detail, but now as compared to the Sanchi door jamb, this door jamb is beautifully carved. There are a lot of bands here, vertical bands. They are known as sakhas, branches, and they are beautifully carved. They have couples. For any civilization to prosper, you shall have happy family life. And that has been profusely depicted in Indian temples from the very beginning. And as I told you, that Shiva family depicts that epitome, or Lakshmi Narayana, or Radha Krishna. Or then now I am coming to Devgarh. So we have seen various stages: pure rock cut temples, rock cut sanctum, pillar mandapa, flat temples, but art form is still taking roots, and then beautifully carved door jambs, but they were flat roofed. Devgarh is a very beautiful place. I don't know how many of you, I just want to show that we have so many places, not their divine sea, and these places at that time, how divine they would have been there because of these temples. River Betwa flows through long, you see, natural formations. There was a fort also, 13th century fort, and this river flows from hilly area and then it comes to plain area. So on the top also there were temples. The Varaha temple was there, that has been damaged of the Gupta period, and then there are very many giant temples of the medieval period. But now I will talk about Dasavatar temple. See, now you can see this temple is very unique. Here you have a rock cut pond. Water is very important in our cultural manifestation. It's a Panchayatana temple. Panch means 5, Ayat means dimension. So on the left, if you see in this diagram, the sanctum is in the center, and there are 4 ways where one can go upstairs on the platform, and on the corner there were subsidiary shrines. So God is in the center, main presiding God, and then you have subsidiary shrines, and you can see many Panchayatana temples thereafter. So in a way, it's a prototype of that temple. Secondly, Shikhara is damaged. Of course, as I told you, that none of the temples of that period are intact. Luckily, at least you can see that something after this recess, at the top you can see it is going to form a Shikhara, and the fragments, these are known as Amalaka, which were part of the main temple and the subsidiary temples, they are there. So from that, it is fully established that this temple had a spire. So this is the first temple in India, which is a prototype of the modern temples, which we have in plenty, whether in North India, even South India, but it represents Nagara style of architecture. Now the temple has a entrance here on the left side, you can see, and the 3 panels, center panels, have been beautifully carved. Luckily, they are intact. Not much of the sculptures are intact. The subsidiary temples are not available there, but even what is available is magnificent. Now you see the Pravesh Dwar or the entrance. You have here guards, divine guards on the bottom left, which I have shown in the two extreme right side. And on the center here, on the lintel, God Vishnu is sitting on coil of the Sesnaga. This is known as Lalat Bimb. Lalat means in Sanskrit forehead, and Bimb is something to show, mirror. So when you enter a temple, on the main lintel, you will find representation of the god. And from that, you can make out that to which god this temple would belong to. Here, there is nothing in the Garbhagriha, but in the center, you can see the Sesnaga sitting on the, Lord Vishnu sitting on the coils of the Sesnaga. Now you compare the Bhumra, which I have shown you, which still is very well carved, that bands have increased. Here in the Bhumra temple, you can see Lord Shiva with half of his bust in the Lalat Bimb. So these things were in the nomenclature. As we say, you can make out from your forehead what kind of person you are, what kind of expression you shall have. So in temple architecture, it represents the Deva Purush. So when you enter here, everything is divine, everything is greeting you. The guards are there, divine guards are there. And Ganga Yamuna here you can see on the top. I will show you them. But before that, I'll again show that it is temple pilasters or the entrance or the platform. Mithunaj are shown. Mithunaj, actually, that is not the correct word. See, as I told you, for any civilization to prosper, Grihastha ashram has been told to be the best ashram.
Yes, ashram.
And for harmonious existence, you see the kind of feeling. It's not erotic. It's very, very assuring, very celebration of life. So that's why these things have been shown, that for worldly existence, everything is required. Some of the pieces I have shown, the top one are from the temples itself, and the bottom one are from National Museum. Some pieces have been recovered and they are placed there. So you can see even there's a place for music, there's a place for relaxation, etc. Life is fulsome. Here on the top, you can see Ganga and Yamuna. They are with their mounts. Ganga is there with Makara here. The Makara is there. And Yamuna is with Kachapa, tortoise. So that's why we survived. At that time, people will worship nature. It's not the kind of environment pollution or these things which we are talking. See, they were put in the temple, that you respect these things. Only then you can survive. And just to tell you that even how many of us we know that whether there was temples in Kashmir or not, I can take another talk. I have written an article on that. Even I, few years back, didn't know that Kashmir would be known for temples. But I was not only pleasantly surprised and shocked, but I visited all those temples myself. They are in very poor condition. But here also you can see Ganga and Yamuna. So I have put it here. So something which started, it has continued. And that's why when you say that it helps us in believing in ourselves. It's nothing new. Nobody has implanted it. It was there from the very, very beginning, say many, many thousand years back, and we have been living with those things. And that's why we have survived. That's why this is the only civilization you find that apart from so many destruction and these things, we have survived. But we shall know more about it and we shall believe in these things.
I made a new map of Mahabharata based on the description of Ratsuya Yagya travels of Arjun, Bhim, Nakul and Sahadev. And in that, Kashmir is one of the provinces he visits. He crosses Kashmir to go to Uttar Kuru. Uttar Kuru is somewhere near Kyrgyzstan today. And also in the west, you earlier mentioned Mahabharata was started from the Sambar village. And but actually Mahabharata was spoken in Takshashila by Vaishampayan to Janmajaya. This was the first time Mahabharata was spoken after compilation. And so, yeah, please go ahead, continue.
No. It's very nice to hear, because you kindly tell, you complete what you were saying.
So that is a history which is very well documented, and unfortunately, some misconception has been spread in India that keeping Mahabharat in the house creates quarrels, where exactly opposite is mentioned in Mahabharat. Vyasdev says, "Whosoever keeps Mahabharat in the home gets all the piety, auspiciousness, good luck, victory, and wealth."
Yeah, that's very true. At least from my own experience, I can vouch that keeping Mahabharata doesn't, it always brings pleasure.
Always
And see, in Mahabharata also there are rasas, the way you believe life, and shant, peaceful,
peaceful.
is the main rasa of the Mahabharata.
Right.
So you correctly said that we have been happily believing in what we have been told, and we are not going inside to understand the essence, the real essence. We have been reading Mahabharata stories, and we have been keeping these books in our house from the childhood. We have been told these stories, and certainly what you said, I have also heard about it, but that has not deterred me from keeping Mahabharata in my house. So here you can see Nar Narayan panel. This is very rare panel. This is very rare also. And you see some in the beginning of the 6th century. Just see the kind of expression on Nar Narayan is there. You have been talking about meditation, and they are in real meditation. This is the epitome of the Indian art, divine art. Whether the kind of representation of body, the animals you can see, deer, a lion is there. I mean, even the representations are also there. The whole situation is divine, and expression you see. This kind of representation I have not seen anywhere else in India. This is a rare thing. Unfortunately, very few people know it, and hardly anybody goes, as I pointed out. So my personal aim is that more and more people shall visit this, talk about it, share about it. And this is, of course, it's quite famous when says when Vishnu is in says Sai, Anand Sai, and this is a very popular feature which have been depicted throughout India, wherever you go, whether it is Mahabalipuram or it is western side. But you see the representation which is there. God is really in in meditation. You can make out. You don't have anybody have to be told. And the divine upside you see Kartikeya, Indra, or on the respective mount. Also, how lively they are, dynamic.
Very lively.
Nandi is coming with Shiva and Parvati, but if you see
The
at the
hands,
bottom,
I can notice the hands are so well made, like looks real hands.
yeah, proportion. That is what I am saying. This was the time. It's not because of for no reason that this is known as the classical age of Indian art and architecture, literature, and everything. So what happens? See, when a society is prosperous, everything blossoms. So that is also a lesson, and we shall learn these things from that. Even economy was very good, country was stable. You might have heard of Skand Gupta, who deterred the Hunas from attacking from the western frontier there, but very few people know about that. Then Gajendra Moksh. Gaj is of course elephant, and he is being rescued by Lord. So I mean, you see the expression. I mean, they are more to be seen and to be believed rather than my description. But this is also hardly seen anywhere. But luckily, these 3 panels have survived there. Then certain pieces which you can see from Ramayana and Mahabharata and other legends have been represented from the very beginning. On the left, you can see Ahilya. She has been saved from her stone form. On the right, Lakshmana is cutting the nose of the Supnaka. So these are few pieces, but there were many sculptures which have been destroyed. And that we are unfortunate in that region. But you see, Ramayana has been represented there, and that is seen in many other temples also. Similarly, legends of Krishna. Today we are celebrating Govardhan Puja here in India. And this piece on the right bottom depicts Krishna as a Gopal. He is not only rescuing men, he is rescuing the cows also. He is rescuing the cow. this piece is also again a recovered piece. And I have shown two pieces here where father of Krishna, when he was born, and he took them to Nandgaon and he is giving it to Yashoda. He's handing it over. So you can see, and then here Krishna and Balaram are big, Nand Baba and Yashoda, of course, head is broken here. And here Krishna is indulged in his playful activity. So these are pieces again, except the central one, they are available in the various museums. So what I want to say is that Devgarh, architecture of Devgarh has influenced the other temples which came after that. And here you can see in Baroli in Rajasthan, a temple I have shown with different features. Now, certain features in Indian philosophy, Indian art have been there from the very beginning and they continue till date. On the top is Kalasa, a pond pot, vase of plenty. And if you see, when we do yajna here, we still put a pot filled with water and other necessary things and offer our worship, believing in water cosmology. On the right side is Lord Ganesha, who has been depicted on the Devgarh Dasavatara temple. Whenever we start any work, auspicious, we pray first to Lord Ganesha. On the left side, you see, is goddess Lakshmi. This form of Lakshmi is known as Gaja Lakshmi. So this has started from the very beginning, and I'll show you. Now I will be ending my presentation, but I'll show you how one theme. I have just picked up one theme, Gaja Lakshmi. Gaja means elephant. Lakshmi, goddess Lakshmi. She is annotated by two elephants, and she has been represented over the years. You see, this is a poster art we celebrate in Diwali. This is the form where a goddess of prosperity is illustrated by two elephants. This is by Raja Ravi Burma some 100 years back. You see, elephants are differently placed. The art is taking, our culture gives lot of scope for experimentation. And as I have shown it to you from the very beginning, if you see the evolution of the temple art form, there have been a lot of experimentation. There is no hard and fast binding on the people. No. This is the only path you will go through. No. You enjoy yourself in a pious way and you can achieve the ultimate path. Then from Titirupalli, this painting is there, which is in Victoria and Albert Museum. You can see the that regional form is expressing it, but the theme remains the same, Gaja Lakshmi.
That's right.
This is from Padmanabhapuram Palace, Kerala, where a whole room has been dedicated by the Kerala Marthand, the Burman dynasty, as a palace for the Lord Vishnu, Padmanabh for Vishnu. And there the chambers have been painted in different forms. So Gaja Lakshmi you can see here again. This is from Udaipur Palace. So in Gujarat and Rajasthan in medieval period, you will see the elephants have become very small, but the depiction is same.
Same.
This is from Bundelkhand, Kanpur, from the from the Chandela period. You again see on the lotus, two elephants are there, goddess is holding, but the theme remains the same. So there is a freedom of expression to the artists, to the rulers, to the people, depending on their they can experimentation. This is from Saman Belgola. This is a Jain temple. Here also you can see. Then Ratnagiri in Odisha, it's a Buddhist place. Devgarh, of course, I have been talking in detail. And then I am going to Mahabalipuram. In rock cut Mahabalipuram, you can see the elephants are so huge here. Kanchipuram, which was the capital of the Pallava dynasty, goddess, again goddess is there illustrated by two elephants on the top. And some 2200 years back in Bharut, of course they are in Sachi also, they are Kaushambi, and there are many places they are there. Gaja Lakshmi is there. You see, this is the first representation of the art form which we have with us. It's a recovered piece. It was also lost. It belonged to Satna, and now in the museum, in Indian Museum in Kolkata, you see goddess is here, and she is standing on, of course, on full blossom lotus in a vase of plenty. So,
I'll just add here a little bit. The Yudhishthir's currency was called Nishk, and Nishk was
okay,
the name of the currency of Yudhishthir Maharaj during Mahabharata time. It was 50% gold and 50% copper, which is a very unusual combination. You need to have a lot of metallurgical science to create that kind of coin, which also had
okay.
Gajalakshmi.
Huh. Yeah, on coins also. Okay. Acha, you have the photograph of that?
I have been told by very leading historians that
But
Gajalakshmi wasn't. So it must be there in somewhere in some Indian museum. Somewhere it must be there.
uh, but on coins I have seen on the coin also. So I have not depicted the coin here, but I will do that just for the because of I thought that it may be a digression from the main theme. But there are many temples, many places, and many media also. Painting, mural painting, stone, terracotta. I have not shown from one from Kosambi, and coins you have taught. I have seen at least in the Samudragupta period, Gajalakshmi being depicted there. So, and one I found in Kandy in Sri Lanka also when I was traveling there. You see, the culture had gone there also. You see, this is an open museum. So that I sum up this. I thought I think you would have enjoyed it, and the others would have found.
Very much, very much. I really enjoyed it. And I must tell you, thank you. I thank you a lot from Sathology channel that you have shown us. This is phenomenal. These are the things which build up our faith. If people do not, there can be a lot of propaganda, but this is the real thing. You can write anything, but you cannot erase the soil. Like for example, the entire Pakistan and Afghanistan, they are filled with Hindu history, filled with the relics all over the sand. They can destroy the structures, still cannot destroy the history. Like one of the famous British archaeologists who founded ASI, he actually used the stones from Mohenjo-daro, Harappan civilization to build a train line, a railway line between Lahore and Balochistan. And the tracks were laid on temple stones. In till date, they are finding out because that track is not being used now. And somewhere in the Indian government should question that and recover it. Like for example, the place where Mahabharata was spoken is in northwestern Pakistan today, and it's called Takshashila. And actually, the name is Takshak. Is still come from there, Sarp, Takshak.
Yeah, Takshak was the king of the snakes.
Sarpayag, and Janmajaya was doing Sarpayagya to kill all the snakes.
Hmm.
And that's where Mahabharata was spoken first time by Vaishampayan. And all the 100,000 shloka were spoken over there. And somewhere in the ASI or somewhere in the government of India should take that project to preserve all those historical sites and work on them. Not only just India, every district of India has some story to tell. So I really loved your presentation, and I'm really grateful. And I would like to invite you again and again to show these things, because this is what makes up the culture of India, the history. So one I would like to ask you a personal question. Since you traveled so far across the Indian subcontinent, you showed us some candy pictures from Sri Lanka. So what was your realization after seeing so many places with the common theme? Because usually they say that India was united by the British. That's again a mythology.
Oh, that's the biggest mythology.
Biggest mythology. Because the
Yeah.
whole land of Afghanistan, Pakistan, Bangladesh, India is filled with stories of one culture. You can see everywhere common theme. So by what you're showing, it clearly sees that it's a mythology that India was founded by somebody else. It has always been a country.
Culturally, it has already been one nation. There is no doubt about that. I showed you. That's why I showed Ganga Jamuna in Kashmir. And if you go to Mahabalipuram also, there also you can see it. Even the great Chola, Rajendra Chola, he named one of his Brihadeshwara temple is Gangai Konda Cholapuram. So these are the facts. Nobody can deny them. That's why I showed you one from the Martand temple, where people do a lot of shootings for the movie, which personally, if you ask, I won't appreciate. We shall at least preserve the sanctity of those temples. It's a huge sun temples, and we had sun temples throughout the country, not one or two. So we have to understand, read these things. I have already shown you Sesai Vishnu, Gajalakshmi, Mahishasur Mardini, and these are not new. These are 1,000 years back. So, and they are found. Of course, they are. Some of them are in museums, but luckily they have survived. Otherwise, people would have really forcing us to believe what they want to tell about our own culture.
Thank you so much, Rajesh Singh ji, and it's a pleasure to have you here. And for viewers, if you have any questions, you'll see the video in live on the premiering on YouTube in a week's time, and you can comment over there. And if you have any other questions for him, you can ask him there, as well as you can email us. And keep watching, keep subscribing, and keep spreading the faith and the knowledge. So thank you all very much for viewing it on Sunday morning. And namaskar, Rajesh Singh ji. Very, very grateful for you to come here.
Thank you very much.